Hello and welcome to this astrological overview for August 14th, 2024. Today is a big day astrologically. The main event, of course, is the long-awaited perfecting of the Mars-Jupiter conjunction at 11:21 a.m. Eastern Time. It is further activated by an opposition from the Moon in Sagittarius only a couple hours later. The larger reality of this is that it is actually a grand cross with the Mars-Jupiter opposite the Moon both square Saturn on one side and Venus on the other. This is fortunate since, like a square table with four evenly placed legs, it creates stability. However, that is not to say today won't be dynamic and intense. It most certainly will be. So let's take this step by step. Beginning with the Moon opposite the Mars-Jupiter conjunction. As mentioned in previous videos, this indicates that we are being challenged to act on faith or belief, often in a way that changes or expands our worldview. It can also manifest as a magnification of motivation, taking big action, as well as having a highly optimistic attitude and confidence in one's ability to overcome obstacles. On the more negative side, it has the potential to magnify the less constructive aspects of Mars, including anger, aggression, and war. Speaking of obstacles, the reality of this configuration is revealed much more clearly when we add in the Saturn aspect of it. The Mars-Jupiter conjunction itself is square Saturn very closely, just barely over 1 degree of orb. This is a struggle between forces that want to push forward and those that want to hold back. That Mars-Jupiter comes in with such power and intensity, whether positive or negative, with a desire to expand into new territory. But Saturn wants to hold back and maintain the status quo. As this plays out in our manifested reality, it is likely that some of us will take on more of a Mars-Jupiter role wanting to be progressive and push forward, while others will take on more of a Saturn role wanting to be conservative and hold back. It is my opinion, and probably that of most astrologers, that the most wise approach in this kind of situation is to find a way to integrate the two seemingly opposing forces. In other words, how can we honor both the Mars-Jupiter forward movement and the Saturnian holding back? If this configuration was a vehicle, Mars would be the gas or acceleration and Saturn would be the brakes. Both are required in order to get somewhere, but neither can do what they're supposed to do without the other. My approach is that if something feels right, is safe, and doesn't hurt anyone, then push forward with it. But as soon as it begins to feel uncomfortable, slow down or stop altogether. Obviously there can be exceptions, but this does work for me at least, as a general rule. Now, let us add in the Venus aspect. Venus is both applying to a square to the Mars-Jupiter conjunction and to an opposition to Saturn. However, these aspects specifically do not perfect until the 19th for the Venus-Saturn opposition and square to Jupiter, and the 22nd for Venus square to Mars, the Mars-Jupiter conjunction having separated to some extent by that time, and so there may be echoes of this energy in the days ahead. The primary reason it is already relevant today is that the Venus aspects are being hooked in by the Moon to an entire grand cross. So what the hell does all that mean, you ask? Here is what it means. Venus square the Mars-Jupiter suggests dynamic tensions in relationships of all kinds, but often especially romantic relationships. On the more negative side of the manifestational spectrum, this can indicate fights and arguments, but on the more positive side, it can easily manifest as very playful, highly creative energy, even in a non-relationship context. This aspect pushes us to express, create, and expand, whether in a relationship or in almost any other kind of endeavor. However, at the same time we have Venus opposite Saturn, pitting our wants, desires, and feelings against authority, structure, limitation, or hard realities. In other words, we may want something at this time, but Saturn comes into the picture and says we might not necessarily get it, or that we have to work for it, or that there are going to be delays in the getting of it, etc. I do not believe that Venus in hard aspect with Saturn always indicates a hard no to our getting what we want. In fact, I would go so far as to say that I firmly do not believe that. However, I do believe from what I've observed that such an aspect can often mean that we must overcome some hard obstacle or limitation in order to get what we want. This can be anything from classic hard work in the external world to the internal hard work of convincing ourselves that we are worthy of our desire and realizing that we can have it. As if all that wasn't enough for just one day, we're still not done yet. This evening, Mercury, which has been retrograde in Virgo for over a week now, retrogrades back out of Virgo and into Leo. And since that retrograde Mercury rules the aforementioned Mars-Jupiter conjunction in Gemini, this sign change tells us that this is a significant tone shift in the overall story of this month. It also may bring us back to events of July 25th and prior when Mercury was last in Leo. With Mercury back in Leo, our thinking and communication becomes less analytical and more fixed, solar, visionary, externally oriented, potentially heartfelt, and self-aware.